Hello and welcome to Where Do We Begin? I'm Jason Waterhouse. I'm from the Sydney Northern Beaches. I'm a professional sailor who is qualified for the Tokyo Olympics, and I'll be heading off there in 2 months' time to bring home a gold medal.
Thanks for that, Jason. My name is Harper. My co-host on this lovely, lovely day goes by the name of Lockie. How are you, Lockie?
I'm good, thanks, Harps. I'm feeling a bit dirty with the amount of puns that we used in the first 15 seconds of the interview, but I've cleaned myself up, and I can promise I can put a disclaimer out there that they're the only ones throughout the episode. How are you today, Harps?
I'm awesome, and I'm even better for the fact that we just finished the interview with Jason Waterhouse. Incredible athlete, incredible story, really. There was some really kind of confronting, I think it's fair to say, stories about his kind of journeys on the high seas. Lockie, you want to tell us a bit more about it just quickly?
Oh, mate, I don't want to go too far, but I will say that it makes Pirates of the Caribbean pale in comparison.
There certainly does. But I reckon we should just get into it, because there's heaps of interesting stuff, as we said in this episode, which you can talk about on Twitter or wherever with the hashtag WDWB Olympics.
Let's dive in.
Now, I hope you listeners are just as excited to get into this one as Lockie and I are, because we've been looking forward to this for a long time now. Our guest today is an incredible athlete, really. He won Olympic silver in Rio 2016, and I can assure you, he'll be Jason Gold when he goes sailing in Tokyo. His Instagram bio says the ocean is his office, and he might even claim that the water is his house. So I'd like to give a big Where Do We Begin welcome to the show to Jason Waterhouse. How are you, Jason?
I'm well, thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're absolutely stoked to have you on, Jason. Obviously, Waterhouse is a name that's quite associated with racing, but it is growing ever more popular in the sailing world. And I think you spend most of your life on the water, but obviously at the moment you're not. You're stuck in quarantine. How's that going for you?
Yeah, the Waterhouse name kind of works, doesn't it? But I'm in quarantine here in Sydney. I've only got 4 days to go. Tell you what, I'm ready for some fresh air. But yeah, no, it's all right. Just making the best of it, and just working out and trying to keep busy.
Yeah, sweet. So something that we've had some pretty obscure sports in this Olympic series. I think we're up to our 5th, 6th episode now. I had a bit of taekwondo, all kinds of things really. But sailing is something that we never thought we'd have a guest on to talk about on Where Do We Begin here. So can you explain a bit about your sport and your event specifically? Is it the NACRA 17 that you'll be racing in?
Yeah, that's correct. So I sail, it's actually a mixed gender class. So it's a 2-person boat, and it has to be a male and a female on board. It's the fastest Olympic class in sailing. We do something called hydrofoiling. It's a big craze going around the world now with all ocean sports. And it's to describe the event is like a circuit that you go around each day. You do probably 3 races each day, and then you accumulate points. So a bit like golf, over a couple of days or a couple of rounds, you accumulate points, and whoever has the lowest points wins. Yeah,
unreal. And I guess what sort of made you decide to go down the path of that event in particular?
That event in particular, I just enjoy going fast and being on the limit, and it being the quickest Olympic class and pretty gnarly. That's one of the reasons as well. And also, to sail with my, female crew, who is also my cousin, it was one of the few classes that you can do that with. So that was one of the reasons in particular I chose that class.
So how fast are you going? How many Ks an hour do you reckon you're hitting at your peak in a sailing race?
Yeah, good question. So on the Olympic class, around 60 Ks an hour, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you got to imagine we're something called trapezing off the boat, which is, standing almost horizontally against the boat. So it'd be like standing out of your car, holding a rope above your head attached to the top of the car roof, and then just leaning out as far as you can. So a lot of G-forces around the corners, and when the ocean hits you doing 60 Ks an hour, it's not very pleasant.
Oh, 60K is sharp. I think anybody that's been on a boat or jet ski and they've seen that, they're hitting 60 on that, you feel the wind in your face. And the fact that you're on the side, it must be really difficult. Does that quite challenge your core strength? Is that sort of what goes on?
Yeah, particularly for our class, it's more the core strength and also the load. The faster you go, the more, like you were saying in a car, apparent wind speed you create. So that makes the sails more loaded. And then when we're pulling those, it's quite heavy.
Yeah, and what's it like to compete with your cousin? You touched on it before that you're actually the person on the boat with you is your cousin. How does that go? Because I don't know how I'd go I guess, competing with my sister or cousins. I think the family ties might make it a bit difficult.
Yeah, you think that, but in saying that, it actually makes it a lot easier. There's a lot of trust there. And, it's not just we're sailing together once every 4 years. We've dedicated our lives. We're training 5 days a week, every week of the year for now. We've been sailing together since 2007. So I think with being family, there's a lot of, like I was saying, trust, but also the commitment. And Lisa, she's super hardworking and she sets a very high standard for herself, which I do as well. And we both know that we're putting in 100%.
Yeah, and I guess the fact that you said you started competing in 2007, that's 14 years ago now. Obviously, team chemistry is so important in all team sports, including sailing. Is the fact that you guys have sailed together for so long really helpful in that you must know each other's tendencies and must really help when you're in the race?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anyone can sail a boat just like anyone can dribble a soccer ball or throw a cricket ball. But it's when you're under pressure in those high intensity moments, that's when, those strong relationships and all that training really pays off.
Yeah, so, and I think you would have been 16, 15 when you started racing with her, started teaming up with her. But I think you, by all reports, you got into sailing when you kind of went on a big sailing trip around the world when you were like 4 years old. Is that right? Yeah,
that's correct. So my family, how I got into sailing, they're massive racers and always have been sailors. My grandparents and my parents are world champions. So, when we also did something called cruising. So instead of being on a caravan, we bought a yacht and we sailed from San Diego to Australia. And then we did that again, except from Europe to Australia, and lived on a boat for about 4 years, just cruising around the planet, which is amazing. You can go to the most remote places where, no one sees the local inhabitants or untouched sceneries. It's been, I'm really lucky. It's been a really cool experience.
Any particularly great memories from that time, particularly amazing kind of scenic routes that you took or amazing places that you went to?
Yeah, it's a good question. There was plenty of adventure. I mean, we had pirate encounters, hurricane encounters, plenty going on. But in terms of the best places, the Galapagos Islands are amazing place to be, for obvious reasons. And also the atolls in the Pacific and somewhere called the Tuamotus, where it's just a ring of reef in the middle of the ocean with no one there except for local pearl divers who, might have an inhabitants of 4 or 5 people. And it's just untouched. You don't see another person and you're on the ocean for 3 weeks without touching the ground sometimes. It's quite surreal, really.
Oh, that's crazy, especially at a young age. I don't know about you, Halves, but I don't even know if I was old enough at that age to go to the football, let alone sail around the world. I think I would have cried a bit too many times. But we can't just go over this. So pirates, you had pirate encounters, like Jack Sparrow. Like, what was that like? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of Jack Sparrow as pirates, I think now the public, since Pirates of the Caribbean movies, has come out to see pirate as go-lucky, friendly people who just, have sword fights. But I can guarantee it's the complete opposite. It's life and death. People who are very poor, in having a real tough life, who are trying to make something of it, and they go into piracy. It's scary. It's scary as hell. And there's certain areas, I don't want to scare anyone from doing this and doing this traveling, but there are certain areas in the world that you have to avoid and be very careful. We were just unfortunate. We got in a situation where the boat had to be repaired, we had damage, and we had to sail it close to the land, which we didn't want to, but the boat was literally sinking, so we didn't have a choice. And yeah, it was scary. I'm just really lucky my parents made some smart decisions and kept us from being captured or boarded. But yeah, it's a memory, that's for sure. Good story.
If you're happy to talk about it further, can you talk us through like the kind of specific details of this pirate encounter that you experienced? Because it just sounds like something out of a movie, really.
Yeah, well, I guess, if any of those that people have seen the movie of Tom Hanks, Captain Phillips, it's a bit like that in terms of the pirates are, generally poor fishermen who are struggling, and then they, they see a vessel or a boat that they can easily board. And obviously we were on a sailing boat, so if they have an outboard engine, it's easy for them to catch the boats. And back in 2003, which is when we were going past, we just left Panama, just sailed through the Panama Canal on our way to the Galapagos Islands, and we had an issue with the fuel intake and the water intake to cool the engine was flooding the boat. So we had to deviate, and we were going to go to Ecuador for repairs, but you have to sail past Colombia. And at the time, Colombia was in a pretty bad shape economically. So Yeah, we had to sail quite close to the land, and unfortunately, we were sort of within that pirate bandwidth area. And just one night, just had an encounter with one of the fishermen trying to get on board. And my sister and I were quite young at the time. We had a safety hole that we just went into, like sort of like a safe room. But my parents managed to keep the boat quite quick and hard for people to board the boat and from there. So it was scary, a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, a lot of contact between the two vessels, but we were lucky to get away from it unscathed.
Yeah, mate, that is absolutely crazy. And I think any sort of pirate encounters would have you well prepared for any of the training that you have for the Olympics. And this is something I'm really interested in. And I'm sure you're not fighting off pirates from your boat in your event, but I'm interested to know what is the training regime like for sailing in terms of like the workouts and I guess how much time you spend on the water and the gym and yeah.
Yeah, so the two roles on my boat, being a double-handed boat, are quite different. So I'm the skipper, which would essentially mean I'm the driver. I'm the one making the decisions, steering the car around the corner, sort of, choosing when to overtake, stuff like that. Whereas Lisa, my crew, she's the engine. She's the workhorse on the boat. So our training regimes are quite different. Hers is very physical. Like she's in the gym 6 days a week, a lot of lifting, powerlifting, and staying obviously cardiovascular fit as well. Whereas I don't have to be as strong. My role, I kind of need to be a bit lighter so she can carry more of the muscle mass. Mine's more mental training to make sure that when we get in those racing situations, I can make the best tactical and strategic decisions.
How do you do the kind of mental training though? Just can you do it from home, or what goes into it?
A lot of studying, like past races and data analytics of previous races. You can't do a lot of simulator work, but in saying that, I don't just do Olympic sailing. I do a lot of other types of professional sailing around the world, and that also, gets me thinking differently, keeps me, in those high pressure, puts me in those high pressure situations, so that when I get into those during the Olympics, it kind of feels normal. But yeah, that's kind of how I stay fit. Sometimes, some days are easier than others. But yeah.
So have you had a crack at your cousin's role in terms of being the engine, or you've always sort of been like, I guess, the captain of the sailing ship?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do sometimes a bit of role swapping just so, although we're doing different roles, we're kind of working together. So a lot of it's timing, communication. So it is good to sometimes switch the role to understand what your partner's feeling on the boat, so you can maybe perhaps make their job easier and in turn make your, overall performance better.
Yeah, so I'm guessing from what it sounds like, it's a full-time job for you. You don't have anything going on the side?
So no, I don't have any work, or I do other professional sailing, like I said earlier. But when we are back in Sydney, we treat it like a full-time job. So it's 8 till 5 every day, probably 4 days on the water, probably another day doing boat work. They need a lot of upkeep or meeting logistics planning. We have 3 or 4 boats at any one time somewhere around the world in circulation. We don't sail our boat from Australia to Japan to compete. We actually ship them over there and then compete. Just that in itself is quite hard with the campaign logistics. But yeah, other than that, if you want to win a gold medal, I'm convinced that any sport, it's got to be full time.
Yeah, I'm just imagining you though. Imagine if you did have to sail there in your foil boat from Australia to Japan. I don't know how it would go in those rough seas. And you touched on it before, how you sail professionally. And if I'm correct, as a member of Australia's GP team.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so at the moment I'm just running 2 projects, which is the Olympics and an Australian style GP team. In the last campaign during Rio, I was also in the America's Cup sailing for Japan. And then, earlier than that, I was doing, extreme 40s or the GC 32 circuit. So I've always got something else, helping pay the bills on the side as well. And
yeah, so this GP team, is it like Grand Prix, obviously, but is this like the kind of biggest thing in sailing? What's the team all about, really?
Yeah, I guess it's a circuit that, travels around the world. So we just had an event in Bermuda. Unfortunately, I just missed the event in Italy because I'm stuck here in quarantine, and I will miss the British event as well because I'll be at the Olympics. But it's a traveling circuit that goes around 8 countries around the world. Also, there's 8 different teams. and it's just nation versus nation. So it's 5 Australians on board our boat versus 5 British on the other, or Danish or Japanese. And then there's a final, which will be in San Francisco in May. And then they're all on the same identical boat. And those are the fastest racing boats in the world. They hit 100 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
And in the final in San Francisco is the final event, and you race for $1 million. So good pressure practice there.
So you're number 8 in the world at the moment, I believe, or in the NACRA 17 at least, I think. So has kind of this whole COVID situation, obviously, in Australia's such strict border controls, has that affected your ranking and kind of made you lower than where you actually deserve to be?
Yeah, the world ranking, you don't. It sounds a bit strange, but you don't actually take any really consideration because it calculates the amount of events you've done in the last 12 months, not necessarily your position in the World Championships. So, being Australian, we weren't able to compete in any events in Europe last year, so that's why our ranking's so low. But in the last 2 World Championships, the most recent 2 World Championships we had before COVID, we placed third in New Zealand in 2019, and then third also in Australia in 2020. So we're around about that third range, and that was for the Olympic selection as well. So. But we're confident for the gold. We won silver last time, and that was great, but it wasn't what we wanted. So in Japan, we're aiming for the gold medal.
Yeah, I was going to say your 2018, 2019 and 2020 form was absolutely exceptional, I think. Looking at it, I think you won 4 out of 5 events in 2018, and like you said, you performed strongly in the 2019 World Championships as well as in 2020 in Geelong. How much confidence do you take out of that, your recent good form heading into the Olympics?
I think it would have been a lot more... of a confidence builder if the Olympics were on schedule back in 2020. I think with the changes we've had now with COVID and the 12-month delay, initially I had a feeling it would benefit us. And then as Europe started to get, improve, their COVID climate started to improve, and they've now travel freely and compete, and ours hasn't really budged since then. I think it's actually hindered us. So, it is what it is, unfortunately. Like I've got no complaints about how the government's, reacting to it, COVID. They're the bosses and they're doing what they think is best for us, which is totally fair. But in terms of our preparation, I'm just working, Lisa and I are both working within the bounds we have, the constraints we have. So we will make the best of it. Whether, it will affect us, probably, but I don't know if it will be for the better or worse.
So what are the things that do you reckon can lift you up to gold from, like, obviously having the good form prior to COVID hitting, winning silver in 2016 in Rio? Well, what's going to lift you up to reach gold this time around?
Yeah, it's a good question. We haven't taken the foot off the gas. The difference is, though, is instead of, going overseas 6 months of the year and competing and doing lots of competitions to test if our training is effective, we haven't been able to test it. So we haven't been able to validate our training against the international world, which is the hard part. So, you've got to trust your what you're doing in Australia and our training is the right step. We have done a quick trip to Spain just to check in really quickly. And, it did go well. But these next 4 weeks are going to be really critical. And another thing is the Olympics, they're a whole another kettle of fish. I'm lucky I've done one of them, but it's amazing seeing athletes perform differently under pressure. And there's nothing like pressure than Olympic to test your your mental stamina than the Olympic Games when the whole world's watching. Absolutely. Like, for example, when we traveled to Spain about 3 weeks ago, and we did 2 competitions over there, just low key ones. And the first event, we got off the plane and literally went straight into a regatta, a competition. And, I felt like a computer that just had been overloaded, just trying to make decisions, the right ones, the right decisions and reacting quickly. I just was so out of my depth for some reason, which was usually my wheelhouse. But, then we finished average that event, took 2 weeks of training over there and, tried to work on those things that we identified as weaknesses, and then we won that final event. So, and it felt normal. So we're really lucky that we went and did that. But it's amazing just how we went over there really confident, and we kind of got, kick up the butt, just being like, no, mate, you gotta work a bit harder, because it's not going to get given to you.
So what are the kind of specifics that you've been working on in this whole break? So is there anything that, like a weakness in your game, your and Lisa's game, that's you've tried to improve so you can come closer to winning gold than last time?
Yeah, I guess what we've been trying to do is, because we haven't been able to travel or visit the Olympic venue, we've been trying to find a location in Australia that emulates the same conditions that we'll find in Japan at our racing venue in Enoshima. So we've been traveling a lot up the coast of New South Wales and into Queensland last winter, and we'll go back up there once I get out of here. We'll head up there if we can to do a bit of training. Been working. The only thing we really can work on is our boat speed and our technical development, because we don't have any other boats to compare to do any racing simulations. So it has been quite difficult. But yeah, I think you have to be so self-critical as well during this training period, because you can't test if it's good or bad. So you've got to be really honest with yourself and say, how does that feel? And be really analytical about the results. It's been difficult, to be honest, but it's just the help with the hand we've been dealt.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially as it would be really hard to sort of replicate the conditions that you'll be, I guess, competing in the Olympics. And what is the course like in the Olympics? Or what are the conditions like at where you are competing? And I guess you've competed there before, and you've said it's a really great course. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're thinking it's been quite light conditions. It's a beautiful place. We're going to sail at Enoshima, but we're thinking 8 to 9 knots, which is about 10 kilometers an hour wind speed, which is on the lower end of our racing sort of range. But it can also be 25 knot southerly big waves. Those southerly fronts that you get on the east coast of Australia. They can come through and they can be really tricky to sail. So we have spent probably about 2 weeks sailing there, maybe 3 weeks time in the previous years. But to put it in perspective, we spent 6 months in Rio getting used to the venue and conditions and locations. So whereas now we're coming up, all the teams, not just us, but the whole world's going to be coming in there with little experience with the little location intricacies.
Yeah, well, so what, were you in Rio like 6 months before the games practicing in preparation of your event?
No, so what we're doing is, because obviously the Olympic window is in August, so it's the Summer Olympics. So the conditions, obviously, like in Australia, are very different from summer to winter. So what we do is, with the 4 years prior, we'd probably spend 2 months each year going to that location and living there in an apartment and getting used to the city. It's a bit like Sydney's a good example. In the summer you get those beautiful nor'easters, quite a lot of breeze that kick in the afternoon and good wave states. And then you come into winter and then you get the big westerlies in the morning and then no wind in the afternoon. So it's a bit like that. It's like that everywhere around the world. It's just so different from summer to winter. So you really got to get there in that Olympic period and learn the conditions.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a bit like Melbourne. Instead of changing from summer to winter, in Melbourne it just changes during the day. You get winter conditions in the morning, and then it's bright and sunny 2 hours later.
That's why I use Sydney as the example, because Melbourne gets the 4 seasons in a day, so it's just bloody useless.
Yeah, and in 2016, like silver, it's a bloody great result. Something that you should be really proud of, I reckon, both of you. But it's probably not what you aim for. You probably aim for gold. Obviously aiming for gold this time around. So what do you reckon went wrong last time for you to not reach that ultimate glory?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, we were leading most of the event in Rio. I mean, we were quite young, but it was our first Olympics. And just that, like, learning that what pressure sort of does to your decision-making skills was quite interesting. But yeah, Rio, it's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, we lost by 1 point, over 100-point series. So it's 1%. Yeah, it'd be like a fingertip on the wall in swimming. So yeah, it was tough. Silver being our first Olympics, you kind of walk away going, "Oh, that was pretty good." But to come so close to sweet gold and not quite get it was tough. But in saying that, it's just makes us hungrier to get this Olympics.
And it was the first Olympics for the just event as a whole, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So it was the first time that the NACA 17 was in the Olympics. So, hopefully a gold would be nice, but yeah, it's been a weird few years, man. These last 2 years with COVID, as the world knows. So, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So gold this time around, and obviously is the field too similar to last time? And how much do you have to kind of scope out your competitors, and how much do you have to kind of think about what they're going to do and adjust your plans based on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. The field is similar. It's like some of the same people will be there, and some new people into the class have come in and done really well as well. It's been interesting. The Italians have been quite good this last 4 years. The British as well. We've been pretty strong as well. So, I think those three nations, including ourselves, will be probably at the front. But this extra year has given some newcomers more time to sort of advance up the fleet. That a bit, countries you wouldn't expect have gone home, had a year extra to prepare, and now they're up there and really competitive with the front bunch. You could see a few dark horses.
Yeah, I was going to say, when was the last time that you competed against the people that you'll be competing against in the Olympic Games? Sorry if that's a bit of a word jumble.
No, it would have been in Geelong in 2020.
So that's quite a long time. So that's about 16-ish months now. Like, does that sort of make you think? It's like you said that it could be a lot of dark horses win because you haven't raced against each other in so long. Like, you don't know who's in good form or. Yeah,
exactly. But at the end of the day, even if they're in good form and they're sailing fast, you can't control their boat. I've just got to control mine. So it might be interesting, and you might have to keep an eye on them and try to take them out legally, like within the rules. You can actually inhibit your competitors in sailing.
How can you do that?
It's like it's hard to describe. It's what our boat does is when the wind hits our sails, it leaves. When you stand behind a building in a strong breeze and there's no wind behind it, you hide behind something to stop the wind getting you. The sails do the same thing. So if you see a competitor behind you, you can position your boat to put them in a no wind spot, and that slows them down. It's very common in the racing. It's not a dark tactic or anything like that. It's literally part of the racing. Okay, how can I slow these guys down, and stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, you're trying to blanket their wind with your sails.
Is there a way you can stop that, or what? How do you combat that? Really?
It's a lot about positioning. I mean, it's quite a detailed part of the sport, but it's all about where you put yourself in the fleet to make sure that no boats will do that to you. So if you find yourself, if you have a bad start, I compare it to like car racing. If you have a bad start, it's really hard to get past all the cars in front, because they can be defensive and position themselves with certain corners to stop, you having a good run. So the start's critical. And then once you get off the line, it's all about positioning yourself so that you can't get put in that bad position.
Yeah, and come the Olympics, and when you're competing, we're obviously all going to be cheering for you and Lisa back home here in Australia. But who are you going to be your big rivals for that gold medal spot and the medal spots in general, really?
So the gold medalist from the Rio Olympics, the Argentinian, he'll be there, but he hasn't done very well this last 4 years, so I don't think he's too much of a threat. But I think the Italians and the British, they're pretty strong. The Danish as well, and the Spanish, mostly European countries, they seem to be in. I think because they're all so close to each other, they can always catch up, do little regattas, and learn off each other and work together. Where us being in Australia, we're quite isolated. Especially now with this COVID situation, it's made it a bit worse. But it's all good. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, interesting. And we'll back you in over the Europeans. And now, okay, we'll fast forward a little bit. It's August now. You've won your gold medal. What are your plans now post Olympics?
Get on the beers like Daniel Andrews.
What's a beer of choice?
I'm a bit more fancy. I'll probably have a whiskey or something. But I'm actually going to go straight to Denmark from Japan. I won't come home, unfortunately, with a gold medal. Have to ship it. But I've got other commitments with Sail GP straight afterwards, and this is not enough with the quarantine time, I'd get like 2 days at home before I had to be back on a plane. So, I'll probably be handing the gold medal to Lisa and asking her to deliver it to my fiance or to my mum. And then, I'll be over in Europe for another 3 months working.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. Sounds like an absolutely hectic schedule, really. But something I'm really interested in, sailing. It's a sport like no other that we've ever spoken about on this podcast. Like, what's the typical age for a sailor to retire from the competitive scene?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's kind of one of the good things about our sport is you can do it till you're 80, and you can start as low as 4 or 5. So, in terms of being in your peak, generally, like let's say the top of the sport, you probably want to be anywhere between 22 is kind of when you start getting into the top of the level, and then you don't really fall out of it until you're mid-30s, maybe even later if you're really good and really dedicated. But there's plenty of other professional aspects to the sport. It's not just Olympic sailing. There's something called the ocean race, which is like sailing your boat around the world. There's races that literally go for 2 months around the world. There's America's Cup, which is the oldest sporting trophy in the world. They're like multi-$200 million campaigns every 4 years that you race for the old mug. There's Sail GP, there's heaps of different avenues, and you can be up to 40, 45 years old, and then you start to come away from probably the peak level. So probably 20 year sort of good career.
So is it difficult for you, because like you said, there's so many different types of races, and you've competed in so many different types, like from America's Cup, Sail GP, and the NACRA. Is it ever difficult to transition, or do you feel like most of the skills are pretty applicable from boat to boat and team to team?
No, that's not. No, I think it's, for me anyway, I think I'm lucky that I've had lots of opportunities and to sail with great people and then referred to other teams. So I don't find it too hard. I really enjoy the team aspect. I'm definitely a social butterfly. I like to have be around the lads and the girls and talk it out. I feel like I bring quite a positive attitude to the team environment. Sometimes it can get a bit, when the team's down, I feel like I hopefully bring them up.
The energy guy.
Yeah, I think I am. I'm quite enthusiastic, and I love the sport, and I think just it's important to stand back from it all and just realize, you get to sail boats for a living. It's pretty life's pretty good. I'm not in an office.
Do most skippers have a bit of an attitude like that?
No, everyone's different. I've sailed with blokes who they just need to be angry to do well. And it works for them.
Right.
And then other people, are probably too loose, and they sort of, a bit California surfing. You're like, oh yeah, she'll be right. A bit floating with the fairies, and then they just get, they can be really good too. But I think I'm somewhere in the middle. You bring that sort of level of intensity, but also that sort of perspective is important, I think.
Yeah, I think that's obviously an awesome approach to have. And on the sail to our GP team, I read an article recently that your cousin Lisa, she's potentially gunning for the same position as you in the team.
Yeah. So Lisa, so it's pretty cool. The sport's trying to bring more women to sailing, like most sports around the world are, which is a really cool initiative. And so we had a trial for women to join, and we selected 2, Nina Curtis and Lisa, my cousin Darman, and they did a trial in Bermuda. And unfortunately, Lisa didn't get the spot, but she gained a lot of experience out of it. So Nina will be traveling with the team for the next year, and then she'll probably end up taking one of the spots, most likely mine, potentially, to compete on board. So I'm trying to upskill her as much as I can to make sure that when she does jump on in my position, she does really well, then make sure the team, stays on top.
So then what will your focus shift to if you're I guess, not going to be competing with the GP team? Is there sort of another sort of like event that you will be putting your time into?
Oh, there's heaps going on in sailing. I'll have to look around a bit. But to be honest, I really haven't thought too much about it. Just with the Olympics coming up, I'm just so focused on just getting that gold, and then kind of going to worry about everything else afterwards. This might be my last Olympics. It might not. I might do another 4. I just don't know. The problem with the Olympics is it's taxing. It takes everything from you. It's just it requires dedication. Every meal you eat, every hour you're thinking about how you can improve yourself. Whereas a lot of other professional sailing, it's kind of stop start. Once you get on the plane and fly away from that venue, you can kind of relax. But yeah, so who knows what's going to happen.
Now, it's kind of, we're coming towards the end kind of, and of course in the start, you talked about your encounter with pirates, so it kind of bookends it quite nicely. Have there been any experiences in your professional career that have been really dangerous? Obviously not pirates or something, but I don't know if you call them crashes in sailing.
Yeah. Like pretty lucky. Like I'm pretty lucky I sail with good people. So like our team is pretty good. Like I've got really good sailors on board. So when you're pretty good, or when I'm sailing with good people, they avoid the crashes. Usually seeing the blokes at the back of the fleet who do a lot of the bad crashes, and lots of scary moments, like near collisions at 150 km/h closing speeds. It's terrifying, like pretty scary. But yeah, with the professional sailing, I've been pretty lucky. I had a capsize in Bermuda. That was pretty scary. That was loose. But
really, what happened? What happened?
We were just sailing, doing some training, and with this little wing that we're experimenting with, and we're doing about 80, 90 kilometers an hour, and then we went into a roundup, and the boat just like flipped on its ear, and then tried to throw us all out in the boat. And like the boats are wide, like they're 50 foot high, so you're jumping, you're 15 meters in the air, and you're not in a seatbelt or anything, and you're looking down, and there's a carbon fiber wing with like pretty much razor blades looking at you, trying to cut you in half. Jesus. And if you fall out, you got a bit on. So luckily we all stayed in the boat. And but we've got like we wear helmets, we wear impact, like Kevlar impact vests. We've got 2 knives on us. We've got oxygen bottle, ventilator. We've got a rock climbing harness that tethers us in. It's not for the faint-hearted.
Mate, that's hectic. Like you said at the start, that's gnarly. Like, have you ever seen any really bad crashes? Because it is really, is sailing classed as an extreme sport? Because hearing all that, like, it definitely sounds dangerous.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you get a second, type into YouTube just sailing crashes, and you'll see some pretty scary stuff. Like, bad stories of people like, losing fingers, like cutting arteries, like cutting off feet. We had a few deaths. I think only 1 or 2 deaths in the last couple of years, but it's not. A lot of broken bones. It's not. The problem is the equipment around you is what is dangerous, and also you're on the ocean. So if you flip, you've got the boat on top of you, holding you under the water, and then you have all these, razor blades or foils going through the water trying to cut you if you fall off. So it's pretty risky, and you got to be careful. But if you're smart and you train enough, and you're not an idiot, you should be right.
But surely the kind of sailing authorities, they'll call a big race off if the conditions are just too dangerous, right?
Yeah, so there's something called like wind limits. If it's just too windy, they'll just say no racing. But the problem is with like all professional sports, athletes are just pushing the limits harder and harder. Like you look in the surfing, for example, those guys, they go the air and they're doing such intense jump tricks now, and they're so good that their bodies can't keep up with them. So you've got like athletes like John Florence who are so good, yet their bodies just can't keep up with their level. So he can't. They're blowing out their knees and ankles, and it's a bit like that in sailing. Like we're just pushing the boats harder and harder within that limit, but at the end something's got to give.
Yeah, 100%. And it's actually funny that you raised surfing, because that actually relates to our next question, because during our research, we saw that if you had your perfect day off, it would be spent surfing. So can you tell us a little bit about your love of surfing? And I think you're also an avid golfer.
Yeah. So because I live on the northern beaches in Sydney, so I'm really fortunate to be in a really cool part of the world. And obviously on the beaches. So yeah, I just love to go out and surf, and it's a good way to stay fit, but also relax. I head out at Avalon quite a lot. And the surf, I said, this last year has actually been really good. Like the banks have been perfect. So I like the big sort of, I'm not a very good surfer, like just to add quickly, like I can get up and go around and enjoy the wave and whatnot, but I really enjoy like the big wave surfing. So like when it's gnarly, paddling out and just getting that rush of adrenaline and fear,
So we'll see you down at Shippies. See you down at Shippies down at Tassie.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe one day. Dad, get the jet ski. We're not that brave, but I might get there. Yeah.
Mate, that's hectic. And I don't know if you feel it, but I feel like with surfing and also sailing, like when you're out in the water, do you just feel like that sort of connection with nature? Like you look around it and see like how beautiful like the places that you are, like the cliff faces, and I think that's one of the best parts about being out on the water.
Yeah, 100%. It's like meditative, in a way. It's just it's just so chilled, and it's a good way to spend your afternoon or your morning. Like I don't know, I love it. I always walk out of the water feeling so refreshed. So yeah, it's definitely something that I'll keep doing forever.
Yeah, it just sounds awesome, and I know Lockie and I just totally agree with you. It's just so kind of meditative, therapeutic even. But there's just one more for me. I know sailing, it's classed as a bit of, in quotation marks, bit of an elitist sport. So is that something that is kind of plays on your mind? You think about it much, or is it just kind of you think it is what it is, really?
In terms of elite sport, I mean, like sort of, do you mean like
it's not able to be kind of accessed by everyone? It's just for the upper class, really.
That's one thing I hate. Like, I guess I hate about the sport in the sense that unfortunately, you do need like money to get into it initially. But in saying that, like the costs are coming down, and there's lots of really good programs around the world. But yeah, it's tricky. Like I don't want to scare away any parents or anything. Like it's super excessive because you just resell your boats and make a small loss. But I think that's what is the cool thing about things like Star GP is they're trying to make it a bit more level playing field. Like all the boats are the same. If it's all the national pride of all the same sailors on that boat. They're going to lots of different locations to get like people interested in the sport. But yeah, I can understand that public perception of sailing for sure.
Yeah, that's great, and I guess hopefully that more and more kids give sailing a go in the future. It's definitely an exciting sport, and right after this interview, I'm going to be jumping onto YouTube and checking out sailing crashes, and we'll be watching closely at the Olympics. And now it's our final question before we get on to our famous final segment, and it's just in regards to your life philosophy. Like, do you have any quote or words that you sort of live your life by?
Yeah, I do actually. Everything's a test. Is probably the biggest one. So whenever as athletes, it's tricky. Like the public only sees you when things are going well generally, like when you're on the top of the podium or lifting the cup or whatever. But the reality is 99% is failure and you're just striving for that 1%. So, when it comes to injuries or bad performances, I always have to sort of sit down and remind myself that, Jace, everything's just a test. Like it's just testing how bad you want it, how bad you want that gold medal. So you're going to mope or you're going to get up or get out there and train harder for next time. And the second one's probably nothing is given, everything is earned. Like, so that's just another reminder for me that, it's not going to come to you. You got to go for it. That's about it.
Yeah. Unreal.
Yeah, I love that mentality. I love that attitude, mate. It's really good stuff. But now, as Lockie mentioned, it's time for our famous final segment, and I'll hit the music. Of course, it's the Where Do We Begin quiz. We love the little sound effects.
Wow, that was hectic. Holy mackerel.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I'm using holy mackerel, by the way. I like that.
Yeah, we're really pumped up. It's the Where Do We Begin quiz, our famous last segment, the segment that all our listeners know and love. So I've got 5 questions that I kind of gathered, all about they're kind of loosely related to you, Jason, and your career, very, very loosely. So I'll be pitting you, Jason, against you, Lockie, for 5 questions. Your name is your buzzer, and you ready to go?
And I should give you some warning, Jason. I'm in similar form to you in 2018, 2019. I've been dominating the quizzes lately. So just a warning.
Mate, it sounds like this is a Talk It Up Cup. Just bring it on.
Okay, so of course...
It's the Lachlan Gibbs Invitational.
Of course, the quiz is sponsored by our Buy Me a Coffee page, which is buymeacoffee.com/where do we begin. But we'll start with question 1, of course. So this is the closest to the pin question. Of course, the first half of your last name, water. So I've got a bit of a question about water. So closest to the pin, per day, How much water does the average Australian household consume?
Jason,
Jason.
80 litres.
80 litres is incorrect, but it's closest to the pin. I'll give Lockie a shot.
I will go. Does this include showers or by consumed drink?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It just means everything. All the water consumed in a household, like used.
Yeah, cool. Yep.
Jason, do you want to change your answer?
No.
Okay.
I'm happy with that.
Sweet.
I reckon it might be a bit more than. Well, how much would a shower use? You know what? I'll go 90 litres.
Oh, you dog. You would.
Lockie's got the point. It's 190 litres. Very good stuff.
Oh, my
Lockie,
God.
it's quite a way off. 190 litres is pretty insane. There was some other article that said it was like 380 or something, but I thought and it was like 380 per person per day, but I thought that was just completely wrong. So I fact checked it. Turns out it's 190 per household per day on average in Australia.
What's everyone doing? Jesus.
Yeah. It's nuts, isn't it? Anyway, we'll move to question 2. We've covered the first half of your last name, water. We'll cover the second half, house. So a question about houses. So
wait, did we not just cover house as well as you asked the water in the household? So technically it's already been covered half, so I'm just going to put it out there.
We'll cover it again.
That's a fair point, yeah.
Yeah, he's bang on.
Is that a bonus point for picking that up?
Nah.
I'll take away a point for being a smart ass if you don't put a sock in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Question 2. Which Australian state or territory capital has the lowest median property value?
Median property value. Jason.
So, like the average house price, basically.
Yeah, Jason.
Yep, go for it, Jason.
Northern Territory.
I'll need the city or the capital.
Oh, capital city.
Yeah, the state.
I'll say Darwin.
Darwin's incorrect. I'm afraid. Lockie, want to have a shot?
So is it capital cities around Australia? Is that what we're doing?
State or territory capital. Which one has the lowest median property value?
Lockie, it'd be Canberra.
Bang.
Perth.
The money there. And it's not Perth either. It's Hobart.
Yeah.
Hobart, averaging $386,345 according to budgetdirect.com.
Pocket change.
Yeah, exactly. I think Sydney's was like 800,000 and something, or Sydney 872,000, which is like 200,000 higher than anything else, which is just nuts.
Just get that out of the center console of your Commodore.
Yeah.
That effect did not meant to play there. Anyway, we move to question 3. So question 3 is, what's the score? It's 1-0, Lockie. Yep. Question 3. Which E.C. Segar character has been in movies, TV shows, video games and ads, but first appeared in a comic strip in 1929?
Did you say Segar?
E.C. Segar.
Lockie, I'm going to go Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog is incorrect.
Yeah, I got no idea.
Jason, do you want to just have a crack? It's got something to do with you and your career. Just remember that. Some loose connection. Comic strip character in 1929.
Popeye
is absolutely correct. It's got the point.
Wow.
Very good stuff. Very good stuff.
Holy mackerel. Yeah. Nah, sorry. I was just going for the drama effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Never in doubt.
Big fan of Popeye, Jason?
Yeah. Yeah, mate. Yeah, big guns, chasing all the birds. Why not?
we love the spinach as well.
Was he loosely based off you?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Anyway, move to question 4. So, your medal race in the 2016 Olympics happened on the 16th of August 2016. So I'm going to read out the lyrics to the song that was number 1 in Australia on that day, the 16th of August 2016. And you guys can both buzz in whenever you want. But
I've got the advantage here because Jason wasn't in Australia at the time, so I should know this.
Oh, they're very true. But it was a big hit, I've got to say. And once you get it wrong, you can't go again. So... I'll start reading the lyrics. Here we go. Hey, I was doing just fine before I met you. I drink too much, and that's an issue, but I'm okay. Hey, you tell your friends it was nice to meet them, but I hope I never see them again. I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke-down car. and 4 years, no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar. And I
Lockie,
can't stop.
Katy
Lockie?
Perry, Eye of the Tiger.
Katy
No,
Perry,
wait, not Eye of the Tiger. It's
Tiger
Katy
is
Perry.
Incorrect, I'm afraid. I'll keep going. No, I can't stop. So, baby, pull me closer in the backseat of your Rover that I know you can't afford. Bite that tattoo on your shoulder. Pull the sheets right off the corner of the mattress that you stole.
Is this Jason? Is this
Jason?
a Carly Rae Jepsen number, whatever?
Call me maybe.
Yeah, that one.
Call Me Maybe is incorrect, I'm afraid. So both buzz yourselves out there. It was in the chorus. There was they mentioned the word. It's Closer by the Chainsmokers. Have you heard of that one? It was number one for like 7 or 8 weeks, I think, when I was having a look. It was a big hit. You haven't heard of it?
Chainsmokers is in my Spotify. I don't know about you, Jason.
Yeah.
Nah, it doesn't
really
go good next to Bring Me the Horizon.
Anyway, what's the score? Is it? It's 1-1. So going into question 5, all to play for. But of course, it's the Who Am I question, our last question, as usual. So I'm going to go down from 5 points all the way down to 1 point with a series of clues, all leading to, obviously, who I am. And of course, it's got something to do with you and your career, some loose connection. So for 5 points, am I correct in saying that you were born on the 8th of November, Jason?
Yeah, well done.
Oh, mate, just a quick look
Happy
at the
birthday for
Wikipedia
that,
page.
for that in a couple months' time, Jason.
Thanks, dude. Yeah.
So,
You want my credit card details as well?
oh, mate, if they were on the Wikipedia page, best believe I'd be stepping them up. But anyway, for 5 points, I was born the 8th of November, 1966 in Johnston, Scotland. I'll move on to the 4-point clue because neither of you are going to want to go too early there, I imagine. For 4 points, my mother, Helen, and father, Gordon, moved us to Stratford-upon-Avon when I was 9. Despite working as a pot washer in a local Indian restaurant, I always wanted to be a footballer.
Jason. Gordon Ramsay.
Jason's gone very, very early. He's taken a big risk. Is he correct? He's bang on the money.
Oh, wow.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, he's won at 5-1. That's very good. How did you pick up that? You knew he was a footballer?
I watched the thing, and he was saying how he worked. His first place working was in an Indian restaurant, and that's how he got all his palate and stuff.
To be honest, I was also thinking Gordon Ramsay because I heard the name Gordon. So there you go.
Well, that is very, very well done. Richly deserved there, Jason. Great stuff.
Thank you.
Congratulations, mate. Congratulations. That won't be the only thing you're winning over the next couple months, I am sure.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, yeah. We're all hoping for it, mate. And just quickly before we wrap up, as always, I believe you're good to put a song of the week, nominate a song of the week that we can chuck up on our Instagram story. Is that right, Jason?
Yeah, I'm a big Triple J fan.
Don't tell us what it is yet. We'll just put it up when the episode comes out. We want to get the traction on the Instagram, so get all our listeners going to the Instagram account.
Okay, sorry. So do you want the song name now?
We don't want the song name now. Oh, you can give us the song name. We'll beep it out. So if you want, you can give it to us.
No, it's all good. It's all right. I'll save it.
Okay.
I'll save it.
Perfect. Anyway, check out our Instagram to see that Song of the Week nomination from Jason at WDWB Pod on Instagram. But Lockie, have you got anything else for him before we let him go?
I'd just like to thank Jason and congratulate him on the other massive win in the quiz.
Thanks, mate. It is on. I think I could retire. I mean, yeah. I mean, that was it. That was the peak.
Yeah. that you know what they say about the peak, though. Once you've hit it, it's just all downhill.
True. I told you it's all about who performs under pressure. Yeah.
Exactly.
So there we go.
Yep.
No, thanks. Thanks for having me. It was good fun. Cheers.
To borrow the words of BT, wowee, I didn't realise sailing was such an extreme sport, with the injuries and pirates boarding the boat. It's an incredible story, Jason. Thanks so much.
Oh, yeah, really grateful for having you on again, Jason. Really, really awesome episode, I reckon. Just one of many in this Olympic series, which, of course, you can check out in our kind of back catalogue. There's some really great stuff there. And Lockie, of course, we're not taking any grubby sponsor money in this podcast series. What are we doing instead?
Yeah, so we're just doing a buy me coffee. So if you want to support us, if you've got spare change, if your mum gave you a little bit of extra pocket money this week, or you managed to take those Coke bottles and take them to the South Australia depot for the 10 cents donation, and you're a bit flush with cash, flick us $1, flick us 50 cents, anything you can do would be awesome.
Yeah, it's at buymeacoffee.com/where do we begin, no capitals, all lowercase, buymeacoffee.com/where do we begin, and you can check out our socials at WDWB Pod. That's WDWB Pod. You can see Jason's Song of the Week and a whole lot of other great stuff on our YouTube channel, especially Where Do We Begin. Some video content there, which is great. Facebook too, Where Do We Begin. 5-star review would be great. As always, Lockie, anything else?
No, I'd just like to thank Jason for being on, and of course our loyal listeners, and can't wait for another episode of the Olympic series out next week.
It'll be a cracker. See you next week, guys. Thanks for listening.
See ya, and thanks again.